I transmigrated into a maid in the prince's mansion, but even a feudal society couldn't stop me from pursuing free love. My first boyfriend was the prince's secret guard, but he was too busy with work after we started dating. I barely saw him. To get back at the scumbag and make him regret it, I shifted my attention to the wealthy and idle prince. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. On the first night I lay on the prince's bed, my ex-boyfriend the secret guard crouched on the beam above, locking eyes with me. I've transmigrated into a maid, a stunningly beautiful maid in a prince's mansion. The master of the mansion is a carefree prince, handsome, wealthy, and good-tempered, never exploiting the workers in his household. So, aside from a drop in my quality of life, I've adapted quite well to this transmigrated existence. Young, beautiful, and with a good job if not now. When else would be the time to fall in love? The safety of the prince is of utmost importance. Even an idle prince has a group of shadow guards protecting him day and night. The shadow guards are elusive and rarely seen, but they are all dark-skinned, tall, and athletic. Their rare appearances are enough to make the sisters in the mansion whisper among themselves in private. Shadow guards paired with maids, a perfect match. Dark-skinned athletes and me, *size dreamily *. My target is among the shadow guards. To avoid the awkward situation of falling for someone only to later discover his brother is even more handsome, I've decided to take some time to find the most handsome one among them. After getting the chance to be on the meal delivery roster for the secret guards, I realized I had worried for nothing. There was no need to spend time searching, because while aesthetics are subjective, handsomeness is truly objective. I found the most handsome one in just 1 second. His name is Pei Jing. Pei Jing perfectly fits my stereotype of a secret guard, polite but unsmiling. To pursue the aloof handsome man, the first step is to create more opportunities for him to discover my shining qualities. I observed this face in the bronze mirror, one that could outshine the moon and put flowers to shame, with bright eyes and pearly teeth, radiant and flawless, and felt full of confidence. The maids in the prince's mansion only had the chance to interact with the hidden guards when delivering meals each day. I begged my sisters on duty with me to let me take over the meal delivery whenever Pei Jing was on guard. Every time I had the chance to deliver meals, I would personally pick out the best portion from the food box and serve it to Pei Jing, and I would even give him an extra piece of the pastries made daily for the masters. Even the other shadow guards noticed my obvious little crush, often teasing and joking about us, but Pei Jing remained unmoved. His only special attention to me was a single phrase, "Thank you, Miss Lancio," and the handkerchiefs and sachets I shyly offered him were all returned. The sisters who shared my room comforted me, saying that shadow guards live dangerous lives and are not suitable partners, urging me to look for someone else. They told me the kitchen chef cooks delicious food, and the purchasing servant can bring back novel trinkets from the outskirts of the city, but I still think Pei Jing is the best. When they asked me what was so good about him, I just shook my head and said it was good, and the sisters could only shake their heads and sigh as they walked away. But the real reason I couldn't say was simply that people in ancient times didn't yet know the appeal of a man with abs. Pei Jing still paid me no mind, and I remained undeterred, my enthusiasm undiminished. Apart from the prince's special orders, most of the shadow guards' daily work involved hiding near the prince, ready to act at any moment. I have no idea where they are all hiding, probably in the trees of the garden, on the courtyard walls, and on the roofs of the prince's study and bedchamber. So, under the guise of sweeping and cleaning, I intentionally and unintentionally moved closer to the prince, hoping to increase my chances of interacting with Pei Jing. The prince is a gentle and handsome man, with none of the airs of a feudal noble. The maids in the mansion all like him very much, and working in front of him is completely stress-free. I even feel more relaxed in front of the prince than in front of the fierce steward Liu. Sometimes, when I make small mistakes because I'm distracted looking for Pei Jing, the prince doesn't scold me but instead asks gently with a smile, "Is our Lancio having a girl's heart affair?" which makes me blush. I don't know if Pei Jing was watching or if he heard my girlish thoughts, but when we met again, I remained cold and distant, bumping into walls on the path to love while still having to work the night shift. I was daydreaming on duty outside the prince's bedchamber, thinking about how to win over Pei Jing. Just as my thoughts were wandering, I suddenly heard an unclear noise coming from the east wing. The east wing was unoccupied, housing the various treasures the prince collected in his daily life. I wasn't sure if there was a thief attempting to steal, but Mingxia, who was on night watch with me, was dozing off with her head propped up, clearly unaware of the commotion from the east, afraid of causing a false alarm. I didn't dare disturb Mingxia or the guard stationed outside the courtyard gate. Instead, I took a paper lantern and went alone to check the east wing, pushing open the door of the east wing quietly. The room was pitch black and silent, unable to see what was inside. I suddenly felt a surge of fear and half covered the paper lantern with my sleeve. By the faint moonlight and the glow of the paper lantern, I stood at the doorway and looked around for a moment, confirming that there was likely no issue. I guessed it was probably just the sound of something falling. With a slightly eased heart, I took a deep breath and stepped into the room to check the situation. The east wing was cramped. After just 2 steps inside, raising the lantern allowed me to see the entire room. Thankfully, no one was there. My heart finally settled, and the pounding gradually subsided. Holding the lantern, I searched the room for what had made the falling sound. The room was cluttered with various items, and in the dim candlelight, I struggled to move. After checking the cabinet against the inner wall, I nearly tripped over a wooden box at my feet, stumbling and bumping into the wall. This collision nearly sent my just-settled heart leaping out of my throat. The wooden frame of the lantern hit the wall with an unusually crisp sound. This wall was hollow. Based on modern physics, I was certain there was another room behind this wall. It was actually a hidden door. My heart was now pounding like a drum. With no fallen objects on the floor, whoever had made the noise earlier was likely behind this wall. Should I try to find a way to open it and take a look? If there really is a thief stealing, catching them would be a great achievement, perhaps even enough to earn me a promotion and free me from being the lowest-ranking maid. But I'm just a woman with no strength to even tie up a chicken. What if I can't overpower the intruder and end up getting hurt? That would hardly be worth it. I thought about going out to call for help, but this secret room clearly holds the prince's private affairs. Until I know what's inside, I dare not rashly summon others. After hesitating for a long time, I decided to back down. Sneaking into a secret chamber at night to chase a thief is clearly not suited for someone like me. But just as I turned to leave, some mechanism on the side of the wooden cabinet seemed to be triggered, and the wall behind me unexpectedly swung inward, revealing a narrow gap. I saw a faint light emanating from the dark room through the crack, and my intense curiosity drove me to take a look. Not knowing the mechanism of the hidden door, I wedged the wooden box I had just tripped over in the doorway to ensure it wouldn't close on its own and trap me inside before I finally stepped in. The scene behind the wall was beyond my expectations. I had thought it would just be another small room, but what met my eyes was a long corridor that turned at the far end, clearly leading to a hidden world within. Who would have thought there was such a large secret chamber behind the small east wing room? Do rich people just waste space like this? Walking closely along the corridor, I finally reached the end. As expected, there was someone in the secret room, but they seemed severely injured. A figure in black was sitting against the wall, with a deep red bloodstain spreading across the floor beneath them. I had never seen such a scene before and stood there in a daze. Perhaps my footsteps had alerted the man sitting on the ground, as he suddenly looked up in my direction. It was only then that I clearly saw the man's face. It was actually Pei Jing. Why was he here? Why was he lying here covered in blood? I couldn't care less about anything else. Almost jogging as I knelt beside him, trying to check his injuries, the bloodstains spreading on his black clothes were hard to see clearly, so I couldn't tell how badly he was hurt, but judging by his pale face, it was clearly serious. What are you doing here? Pei Jing's voice lacked its usual strength, but his deep, dark eyes were fixed intently on me. I guessed that rather than asking why I was here, what he really wanted to say was, "You shouldn't be here." I didn't ask further, nor did I respond to his questioning. Instead, I tore a clean strip from the hem of my skirt to tend to his wound. I had never done this before, but I had seen Mingxia treat the wounds of the guards and servants in the estate, mimicking her actions. I could at least manage an emergency response. Pei Jing didn't refuse my help, but he just watched me. I couldn't decipher the emotion in his eyes. Large patches of crimson quickly spread across the pale pink fabric. And I realized Pei Jing's injury was more severe than I had thought. No wonder he hadn't moved a muscle, the wound kept bleeding. I glanced down at the unevenly torn hem of my skirt and began tearing fabric from Pei Jing's clothing that hadn't been stained with blood. "What are you doing?" Pei Jing, who had been motionless all along, suddenly reached out and grabbed my hand that was reaching for the hem of his clothes. The movement was so abrupt that he didn't even care about aggravating his wound. I pointed at the hem of his clothes with my free hand and said sincerely, "I really can't tear it anymore. Or there'll be nothing left." Pei Jing's expression stiffened for a moment, but he finally let go of my hand and allowed me to pull at his clothes. After finally managing to dismantle and reassemble Pei Jing's clothes to stop the blood gushing from his body, I was so nervous that I was drenched in sweat. When I stood up again, I almost lost my balance. There's no one outside the East Wing now, only Mingxia and I are on night duty in the courtyard tonight. And Mingxia is dozing off by the wall at the moment. If you sneak out now, no one will notice. Your wounds need to be treated with medicine promptly. Pei Jing stared at me intently, and after a long while, he only said, "Thank you, Miss Lancio, for tonight. But this is not a safe place to stay. You should hurry back now." The implication was that he couldn't leave just yet. I never intended to pry into these secrets, and I instinctively trusted that Pei Jing would not betray the prince. But I couldn't just walk away in confusion after having already gotten involved. Then at the very least, you must tell me why you're here, why you're so badly injured, and why you can't leave, Miss Lancio. You shouldn't. If you don't tell me, I'll report everything I saw tonight to the prince. I'm on duty tonight. And if something major happens, I won't be able to escape responsibility either. The candlelight in the chamber was dim, casting flickering shadows on Pei Jing's face, making his expression difficult to discern in the shifting light. We stood facing each other, one seated and one standing, locked in a prolonged silence. Finally, he was the first to avert his gaze, letting out an almost imperceptible sigh. "The prince has something very important stored here. We take turns guarding it every night. Tonight, intruders tried to steal it. Though I managed to stop them and protect the item, I was injured. They might return, so I cannot leave now. Then I'll find the other brothers to take your place." "You won't find them." "That's true. The hidden guards are very well concealed when on duty, so it's impossible for a little maid like me to find them easily." "Then I'll go beg the prince to send someone. The prince won't ignore you. The prince treats his subordinates well, rarely scolding even the maids working in the mansion, let alone a hidden guard who risked his life and was severely injured for him." "No." Unexpectedly, Pei Jing flatly refused. "Why? Don't let the prince know." Pei Jing paused. "It's my own issue." "You, all right, I won't say anything." Another moment of silence passed, yet I couldn't bring myself to take a step and leave. "Then I'll go back to my room to find some medicine for you. Is that all right?" Pei Jing hesitated for a moment, seeing my obvious stubbornness, and finally nodded in agreement, telling me to be careful. Naturally, I would be extremely cautious, stepping out of the East Wing. I noticed Mingxia was still dozing off, nodding her head. Seizing the opportunity, I quickly made my way to the side room, a temporary resting place for the maids on duty. Though it wasn't fully equipped, it did have emergency medicine and clean cloth strips. I haphazardly grabbed a bunch of items. There was no way I could bring a basin of water, so I soaked a few pieces of cloth, wrapped them up, and for safety's sake, tucked them inside my clothes before carefully returning to the secret chamber. Pei Jing was still sitting in the same spot, looking much better than the miserable state I had seen when I first entered. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief, unfolded the bundle beside him, and began applying medicine to his wounds, which had just stopped bleeding. Just looking at the wounds made my heart race with fear. Applying medicine to them while they were wet must have been uncomfortable. But Pei Jing didn't make a sound. The only sounds in the entire secret chamber were our breathing and my own unsettled heartbeat. That night, Pei Jing insisted that I not stay in the secret chamber to accompany him. As I was on night watch duty, it was indeed not appropriate for me to linger, so, after helping him apply the medicine, I left the East Wing room. After waiting anxiously for nearly half a month, I finally saw Pei Jing again among the covert guards. He seemed to have recovered quite well, and I was finally able to rest assured. On the surface, there was no obvious change in my relationship with Pei Jing. Neither of us brought up what happened that night again, but it became an unspoken secret between us, though it wasn't obvious. I keenly sensed a subtle shift in Pei Jing's attitude toward me. The way he looked at me was no longer just that of an ordinary colleague. I was greatly encouraged by this. Taking advantage of Pei Jing's gratitude and tolerance from my help that night, I forcibly gave him gifts and became even bolder in approaching him. Pei Jing was quite helpless in the face of my shameless behavior, gradually allowing me to seek him out during his rest time and no longer interrupting the other guards' teasing of the two of us. Gradually, the sisters in the mansion and the other guards tacitly assumed that the two of us were already of one heart. Though I knew there was still a long way to go before Pei Jing would open up to me, learning from Pei Jing's colleagues that he happened to be off duty on the Lantern Festival, I begged him to take me out for a stroll, but he was about to refuse without a second thought. I have to. I didn't give him any chance to make excuses. What did you have to do that day? I already asked Brother Songyang, and he said you were off duty that day. Seeing him purse his lips in silence, I knew I had a chance, so I softened my tone and pleaded, "Good brother, I rarely get to leave the mansion. I finally have this opportunity. There are so many things I want to see, and Mingxia even asked me to buy jewelry for her. It's not safe for a woman to walk the streets alone." Pei Jing eventually agreed to my invitation and went out with me for a stroll on the evening of the Lantern Festival. The streets were brightly lit and bustling with noise. Today, Pei Jing was dressed in casual clothes, and as we walked together, we looked just like an ordinary young man and woman. However, probably unaccustomed to walking in such a crowded place, Pei Jing seemed a bit uneasy, appearing even more nervous than I was. I dragged him around here and there, and when we passed by a pastry shop, I begged him to line up and buy the xian dough cake I had been craving for a long time. Surprisingly, Pei Jing was very agreeable today. I only had to say it once, and he nodded and went to stand in the long line, not only buying the xian dough cake but also bringing back a whole pile of them. "How did you buy so many? You can take it back and share it with everyone." Pei Jing may seem cold and indifferent, but I know he is actually a very loyal person. My taste is indeed excellent. I spotted such an exceptionally handsome and secretly passionate man at first glance. "There's a fortune teller over there. Let's go and hear a few nice words." "It might not be anything pleasant," Pei Jing said hesitantly, seeming rather uninterested in fortune-telling. "It's definitely going to be good, trust me." Without waiting for his reply, I pulled him toward the small stall at the street corner. The old fortune-teller, who had been hunched over, spotted the two of us from a distance and followed us with his gaze until we reached his stall. Scattered across the stall were copper coins, a bagua diagram, and oddly shaped seashells. A pole was propped up beside the table, and a piece of canvas swayed above the old man's head, bearing the words "Fortune-telling Master." "Master, how much for one reading?" The old man gestured. 30 coins per reading. I nodded. "Can you give a discount for 2 people? How about 50 coins for 2 readings? What do you want to know?" The old man pulled out a small cloth pouch and pushed it toward me, indicating I should pay, while sizing up Pei Jing with a raised eyebrow. I quickly counted out 50 coins from my purse before Pei Jing could take out his money, placed them in the old man's cloth bag, and pointed at Pei Jing. "Check his fortune first, read his destiny." The old man examined Pei Jing's face and palm, had him draw a fortune stick, and in the end, mysteriously tossed around a bunch of stones and shells, muttering who knows what calculations. Watching from the side, my eyelids twitched, thinking to myself that this old man's methods were all over the place. He must be really getting into his acting groove, but I could only grumble inwardly. On the surface, I had to put on the appearance of someone who devoutly believed in such superstitions. After working for a long while, he finally put away his things, stroked his beard, and began. "This person is clever, broad-minded, and ambitious. Though youth may bring some setbacks, they are resourceful, courteous, and righteous. With both talent and ability, diligent and thrifty in work, they will enjoy a life of blessings and prosperity without loss. However, working with others may not always go smoothly, yet they are well regarded by relatives and friends, like a spring breeze that reaches far and wide. In middle age, their household will shine brightly. They neither bully the kind nor fear the wicked. They see things through to the end, and with heaven's favor, their fame will spread far and wide. They will establish a family and career, live peacefully into old age, reside in grand mansions, have a harmonious marriage without conflict, and be accompanied by children in their final years. Truly, this is a blessed person in the human world. After finishing, he even glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. I averted my gaze, avoiding eye contact with him, and instead looked at Pei Jing. His expression remained unchanged, still revealing no emotion. I had no choice but to brazenly move closer to him. I told you it would be good news, didn't I? Are you happy? Give me a smile. Pei Jing wasn't prepared for my sudden approach. His body noticeably stiffened for a moment before he pressed his lips together and reluctantly lifted them into a slight smile. At last, feeling quite satisfied, I turned back to the old man and winked at him. Master, could you tell me about my love life? After another flurry of activity, he exclaimed with great exaggeration, Miss, your destined love is right before your eyes. The threads of fate have intertwined over many lifetimes. You and your ideal partner are a match made in heaven. Since fate has brought us together, I'll gift this pair of jade pendants to you both. With that, he pulled out a pair of jade pendants from under the table and placed them on the surface, then hunched over again, curling up into a comma just like when he first arrived. Suddenly, the old man reminded me of one of those coin-operated rocking rides, lively, singing, and dancing for a limited time, only to go idle the moment the timer runs out. But I didn't care about that much at the moment. I picked up the pair of jade stones from the table and handed the left one to Pei Jing. I'm quite pleased too. This is meant for my ideal husband. Pei Jing didn't say a word, but I keenly noticed his ears instantly turning red. Damn, he's actually this innocent. That's kind of unfair. So I pushed my luck. The master said we're a match made in heaven. Are you really not going to accept it? If you take it, I'll always protect you. Okay. A faint blush also appeared on Pei Jing's cheeks, and I suddenly felt a mischievous thrill of teasing a proper young man. We stood facing each other in silence for a moment, until Pei Jing finally reached out and took the jade. All right, the old man, who had been keeping his head down, was utterly amazed after witnessing this scene of a female rogue presenting a love token, and finally deigned to look up at us. Feeling uncomfortable under the gaze, Pei Jing grabbed my sleeve and turned to walk away. In the place where he couldn't see, I made a gesture to the old man behind me, whose acting was rather unconvincing, indicating that it was a pleasure working with him, although the performance was a bit exaggerated. The outcome was good, and it was worth the tale of silver I secretly slipped him while Pei Jing was off buying pastries. According to the norms of male-female relationships at the time, since Pei Jing accepted my token, it meant we were officially courting, just like Zhong Shi, who was in charge of purchasing, accepted Liu Xin's pouch and would bring her pastries, jewelry, and trinkets every time he left the estate, or how Chef Li in the kitchen, after accepting Chuanqi's handkerchief, would occasionally save her some delicacies usually reserved for the masters. In modern terms, I would call this a romantic relationship. Pei Jing and I are dating. This realization alone was enough to make me feel elated every day, even if I did nothing. I couldn't help but pile the fallen leaves in the yard into a heart shape and then stare at it with a silly grin. Mingxia, who spent the most time with me, was the first to notice that something was off. She didn't understand my heart-shaped leaf piles, but she was certain that I must be harboring a schoolgirl crush, yet I stubbornly refused to admit it, and she had never seen me frequently interacting with any man, not even going to find the Shadowguard brothers. It's strange. I haven't even seen Shadowguard Pei recently. What exactly are you so happy about? Before Mingxia could figure anything out, I couldn't stay happy either. Because it had indeed been a long time since I last saw Pei Jing. After a month of dating, we've only met 3 times at most, and 2 of those were just quick glances in the corner while I was on duty in the prince's chamber. This is truly a huge blow for a young girl who has just fallen head over heels in love, or, to be more precise, we haven't even had the chance to enter the passionate phase of our relationship yet. I'm so foolish, really. I only knew to comfort myself with how handsome and well-built he is, but I never expected that being an undercover guard meant working around the clock, without even a chance to see each other. I don't expect him to buy me things or save food for me like Zhong Shi and Li Chu do. After all, as a modern person, what delicacies or fun things haven't I seen? I just want to see him. Yet even that is hard to achieve. What's the difference between this and not being in a relationship at all? I even saw Pei Jing more often when I was chasing after him. Why has Pei Jing suddenly become so busy? It seems like it started after we returned from the Lantern Festival last time. I don't know if I'm just being overly sensitive, but I can't help but think of the severely injured Pei Jing I saw in the secret chamber. For some reason, I sense a hint of an impending storm in the calm of the prince's mansion. I finally managed to beg Song Yang to sneak out with me after the nighttime curfew to intercept Pei Jing, who was returning from his shift, covered in the chill of the night. Pei Jing looked more startled than pleased to see me. "What are you doing here?" I pretended not to notice his guarded demeanor. "Aren't you happy to see me? It's been so many days since we last met. Ever since the Lantern Festival, it feels like we hardly get to see each other. I've had a lot of missions lately. I've been too busy." "Are you so busy that you don't even have a moment to look for me? I can stand here and meet you now, so clearly you could come find me too, couldn't you?" Pei Jing lowered his head, his thin lips pressed into a straight line. My gaze fell to his waist, where the jade pendant that matched mine still hung, the one I had personally tied to his belt. Suddenly, I felt a little better. "You accepted my jade. I thought it meant we were committed to each other. But I can't feel that you hold me in your heart. Pei Jing, what are you really thinking? Please tell me." "I'm sorry." Pei Jing's hand reached for the jade at his waist. My heart, like the jade, was clenched tightly, and I stood frozen in place, awaiting the judgment of my worst fears. "I probably can't give you what you want." Pei Jing finally spoke, and my heart sank heavily. I heard him say, "I'm returning this to you. Give it to someone more suitable." I don't know how I took the jade from Pei Jing, nor when he left without a trace of reluctance, nor how I made it back to my room. The next morning, while on duty in the prince's chamber, my spirit still hadn't returned. Even the prince noticed something was off with me and gently asked, "Lan Qiu, did you not rest well last night? Why are you so absent-minded today? You seem to have something on your mind. Being caught daydreaming in front of the master is truly a grave offense. The prince imposes few restrictions on us, so if he spoke up, it must mean my condition was truly poor." I reflexively dropped to my knees with a thud. "Your Highness, forgive me. This servant." "Why kneel? Get up. I was just asking casually, not blaming you." To my surprise, the prince personally rose to help me up. Only when he drew near did I notice the faint scent of incense about him, which suited his demeanor perfectly. Suddenly, a wave of grievance surged in my heart. Pei Jing's icy attitude had been like a dagger stabbed into my heart, one I had deliberately ignored and left unremoved. The prince's gentle words now felt like slowly pulling out the blade to examine the wound, causing the sealed blood to gush forth instantly. Warm liquid slid to the corner of my mouth, and it was only when my tongue tasted the saltiness that I realized I was crying, leaving me momentarily speechless. "Why are you crying? Who made our Lan Qiu feel wronged?" "Yes, why am I even crying? It's just a breakup, isn't it?" Actually, strictly speaking, there wasn't even time for a relationship to develop, right? It was just my one-sided infatuation. Pei Jing clearly never had me in his heart. Just a somewhat attractive hidden guard, not worth my attention. Just a bit more handsome than other men, with a better figure, a bit more respectful toward women, and more. The tears on my face were gently wiped away by a soft silk handkerchief, and my scattered thoughts returned. Through my blurred vision, I looked at the person before me, a beautiful ancient-style beauty, her face softened by a gentle glow from the tears. I don't know if it's because of the intense emotional turmoil, but I suddenly realized my heart was beating very fast. I suddenly had a thought. Pei Jing's virtues don't seem to be unique, I thought. The prince is not only approachably handsome but also wealthy, leisurely, and good-tempered. There are countless good men out there. I shouldn't focus all my attention on Pei Jing. I used to think of the prince as a lofty and noble master, always placed in a distant, unreachable position. But with so many time-traveling predecessors before me, even emperors have been conquered, let alone a mere idle prince, as if guided by some unseen force. My hand lightly rested on the prince's hand that was wiping my tears. The prince's gaze toward me noticeably shifted, carrying a clear, scrutinizing look that vanished in an instant. By the time my vision cleared, his eyes had returned to their usual gentle expression, revealing neither joy nor displeasure. My heart pounded like a thunderous drum. and I couldn't help but feel regret I had been too impulsive, not to mention the status gap between me and the prince. I shouldn't have tested him in such a bold way. How could I use someone as gentle as him to vent my anger with Pei Jing? The prince withdrew his hand, smoothly moving past the moment as if he hadn't noticed my bold attempt, and told me to go back and rest, but I was certain the prince understood my meaning, yet I couldn't figure out his attitude. What puzzled me even more was that the prince only kept me alone in his room to serve him that night. The bedchamber was clearly large and spacious. And it wasn't as if I hadn't been on duty alone in the room before, but after what happened during the day, when the enclosed space held only the two of us, I couldn't help but feel tense. The prince took off his outer robe and sat on the edge of the bed, gesturing for me to come over. I walked stiffly toward the bedside. The ambitious determination I had felt earlier in the day to take down a mere idle prince before even touching his hand had completely vanished. "Why are you so nervous?" "I'm not going to eat you," the prince said with his usual gentle smile, but I felt too guilty to meet his eyes. Could it be that I was too insensitive before, and actually it was me who made you cry during the day? "No, no, your highness is very kind. It was I offended your highness," I quickly denied. Speaking my first words since entering the room tonight, the prince smiled very charmingly and suddenly reached out to grab my hand. Before I could react, he gently pulled me forward. And I was pulled to sit on the bed. This startled me greatly. How could I dare to sit here so comfortably? I almost jumped up immediately, but a hand pressed down on my shoulder, forcing me back. The force was not heavy, yet it was not to be refused, since the prince insisted I sit. I couldn't very well engage in a back and forth of repeated refusals with him, but I was on pins and needles, unable to figure out what he intended to do. Could it be that the prince has actually had his eye on me for a long time, and instead of intending to reprimand me, he wants to play out a scene of a domineering prince and his charming maid? The prince's hand moved from my shoulder down to my waist, and I nearly turned to stone, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would leap out of my throat. Though my mind was racing with scenarios, I had never been this close to a man before, and in this era, in this situation. If the prince wanted to take things all the way with me, the prince's voice came from beside me, interrupting my wandering thoughts. "This jade looks like a pair. Is the other one with your beloved?" "No, there's only this one." Thinking of Pei Jing, my heart instantly sank to the bottom, and my voice turned muffled. "This servant has no beloved either, so you don't, after all." The prince slowly drew closer, forcing me to lean back. Then, "Lancio, could you save a place for me?" For a moment, I forgot to refer to myself as this servant. The prince didn't seem to mind the slip, perhaps out of sheer nervousness. I lost my balance and tumbled onto the bed. The prince leaned in close, and I could smell the scent of soap on him. The prince always seemed excessively clean, whereas on Pei Jing, I only ever seemed to smell the scent of blood. My heart was beating fast and heavy, almost loud enough to hear the thumping. I didn't dare look at him anymore and shifted my gaze upward toward the prince's shoulder, but when my eyes landed on the roof beam, my heart stopped for an instant, and all the boiling blood in my body instantly cooled and turned ice cold. Pei Jing was crouched on the beam, his expression as still as water, his eyes locked with mine. The room was brightly lit by candles, and though the light was partially blocked on the beam, it was enough for me to see the turbulent emotions swirling in those deep, dark eyes, but it was all too complex. I couldn't decipher what they meant. That one look made all the messy thoughts about the prince vanish from my mind, completely replaced by the name Pei Jing. It was like having a basin of cold water poured over my head, jolting me into a clearer awareness of the situation. Summoning my courage, I pushed the prince away, rolled off the bed, and knelt beside it. "Your Highness, please forgive me. This servant has overstepped and offended you." For a long moment, there was no sound from above, but I could feel a tangible gaze fixed on me, sending a chill down the back of my neck. It was I who acted rashly. "You may leave for now." The prince rarely referred to himself as this prince, and I could sense his foul mood, but I couldn't afford to dwell on it. Fleeing the room as if escaping. After that night, I spent several days in fear and trepidation. But the prince acted as if nothing had happened. Though the steward's office no longer assigned me duties in the prince's chambers, instead, Pei Jing, whom I had barely seen a few times in the previous month, appeared on the path as I was returning to my room after my shift. I spotted him from afar, standing in the middle of the path, clearly waiting for me. But even as I approached him, he didn't say a word. I was utterly annoyed by his reluctance to speak, so I pretended not to see him and made to walk past, seeing that I was about to leave. Pei Jing finally deigned to speak, reaching out to grab my arm. Lan Qiu, does Guard Pei have something to say to this servant? I feigned having just noticed him, subtly withdrawing my arm and giving a slight bow. Pei Jing's expression stiffened. His hand, which had been reaching for me, hovered in the air for a moment before he finally withdrew it. Lan Qiu, do you want to leave the mansion? What? I didn't expect Pei Jing to say this, and for a moment I was too stunned to react. Forgetting to put on my usual cold expression, do you want to leave the mansion? I can help you redeem your indenture, Pei Jing repeated, looking at me with a serious expression. Where would I go after leaving the mansion? I have no parents. And being able to work in the prince's mansion is already an extremely fortunate thing for me. Just kidding. This is a civil service position. For women at this time, there's no better place to settle down than this. No matter how much one shouts about pursuing freedom and equality, the prerequisite is at least being able to solve the basic needs of food and shelter. I have a residence in the western suburbs. You can go there. This actually meant he intended to support me, which was completely unexpected. It would be a lie to say I wasn't moved, especially since the person in front of me was my ex, whom I still held a grudge against after just breaking up. But a man saying he'll take care of you is the kind of thing you should just listen to and forget, especially since Pei Jing hasn't even given me a single promise of commitment. You said it yourself, that's your residence. What would I be if I moved in there? Only now can I sense a bit of Pei Jing's feelings for me, but even now, he still refuses to say the words I want to hear. I just feel utterly powerless. If you get too busy to care for me again, where would I go then? At least the prince's manor won't kick me out for no reason, and they even give me a monthly allowance. I won't. Pei Jing immediately denied, but probably realizing his words lacked conviction, he quickly added, if you're worried, I can introduce you to a shop for work, or you can start your own business. The prince is not a suitable choice for you. I had a gut feeling there was something hidden in Pei Jing's words, yet I couldn't pinpoint what was strange. Why are you suddenly in such a hurry to make me leave? Is something about to happen? Or are you hiding something big from me? Pei Jing fell silent again, seemingly very conflicted. If you don't tell me, I won't leave. I can't recklessly entrust my fate to vague promises. I don't even know what you truly think of me. By the end, my voice couldn't help but tremble with tears. If I stayed any longer, I might burst into tears the next second. So I simply lowered my head and stopped looking at Pei Jing. Forget it. Since Guard Pei is unwilling to speak, this servant will go back to rest first. I have to report for duty at the prince's place early tomorrow morning. I kept my head down and tried to walk past Pei Jing, but a strong force pulled at my arm, and the next moment I was pulled into an embrace. Pei Jing's arms held me tightly. He held me firmly against his chest, pressed so close that I could even feel his heartbeat. I want to protect you for a lifetime. How could you not be in my heart? But if you stay by the prince's side, I'm truly afraid I won't be able to protect you. I grew even more uneasy, certain that something was about to happen. I tried to push him away but couldn't. So I looked up at him from his embrace. Is something going to happen in the prince's mansion? I'm sorry, I can't say more. It's just that the prince no longer trusts me. And he might already know about our relationship. I'm afraid he might take his anger out on you. Does the prince not trust you, then? Do you have any disloyalty toward him? I thought of that night in the secret chamber when Pei Jing refused to let the prince know, and a sense of foreboding welled up in my heart. It's not that I have a strong sense of belonging to the prince's household or deep loyalty to the prince himself, but given my current status as a servant in the manor, getting involved in the power struggles of the great figures is all too easy for someone like me to be swept away and die without even knowing how. I instinctively fear being dragged into muddy waters, but Pei Jing and I are already inextricably linked. There's no turning back now. At the very least, I need to gather as much information as possible to stay a little safer. Pei Jing said the prince would take his anger out on me because of our relationship. And only then did I recall that night when the prince mentioned the jade pendant hanging at my waist. Pei Jing had boldly worn the other half of the jade every day while on duty in front of the prince. Clearly, the prince recognized it and questioned me because of that. That night, I deliberately concealed the truth, which must have seemed highly suspicious in the prince's eyes. Fortunately, I could still explain it away as stubborn defiance born of emotional turmoil, and luckily, it seemed the prince didn't take me seriously at the moment. Pei Jing remained silent for a long while before responding indirectly. The laws of the Great Yin Empire forbid the keeping of private guards. I am a royal guard, loyal to the entire imperial family of Great Yin, not to the prince alone. The amount of information in his words was overwhelming, and I found it difficult to process at once. Pei Jing was loyal to the imperial family, and the prince was also a member of the imperial family. But now, it was clear that Pei Jing and the prince were not of one mind. Didn't that mean the prince and the current ruling power of the imperial family were not aligned? But isn't the prince's character supposed to be a gentle, wealthy, and idle royal? How did it suddenly turn into a rebellion direction? Indeed, the heavens don't assign time travel quotas randomly. A time-traveling woman shouldn't be wasted on a light-hearted daily life setting. I'm starting to sense a whiff of power struggles in turbulent times, but I don't have the brains to get involved anyway. The only thing I can do is make a choice at this moment, insignificant to the emperor and the prince, but crucial to me, to choose Pei Jing, or to choose to follow the prince. In truth, leaning against Pei Jing's chest makes it impossible to think objectively, especially since his pectoral muscles are really firm. I couldn't help but recall hearing that pectoral muscles are soft when relaxed, which means Pei Jing is either tense and rigid right now, or deliberately showing off his physique. The phrase beauty leads to foolishness is really well coined, I thought dizzily. Anyone held in such an embrace while looking at Pei Jing's face would probably be unable to refuse any of his requests, especially since Pei Jing said he wanted to take care of and protect me for a lifetime. Who could possibly refuse that? Besides, even if I worked diligently for the prince all along, if he really intended to rebel, he might not necessarily protect me. The awkward scene from the other night is still vivid in my mind. One path leads to a dim and uncertain future of labor, while the other is a broad road to a happy life with an exceptionally handsome man. It's almost not even a choice. The answer is so obvious. All right, I'll go with you, I said, wrapping my arms around Pei Jing's waist and instinctively tightening my grip. This is the second time I'm trusting you. Don't let me down again. Pei Jing, having received my promise, breathed a sigh of relief and asked me to wait for him for a few days, then offered to see me back. I wasn't quite used to such enthusiasm from Pei Jing, so I simply said it wouldn't be proper for others to see us and urged him to go back. After that, it seemed like Pei Jing's official duties suddenly dwindled, and he would show up every now and then when I was alone. Perhaps it wasn't that his tasks had lessened, but that he finally found the time to slip away and come see me. Isn't it possible to make time? I wonder what you were doing before. I was upset and deliberately acted cold and indifferent towards him. Pei Jing was already a man of few words, so when we were together, it was mostly silent, but for some reason, the anxiety I had been feeling for days always seemed to fade a lot when I was in the same space as Pei Jing. Pei Jing hinted a few times that he wanted the half-jade back, but I didn't want to give it to him anymore. I threw it away. Didn't you say it's not good for others to see it? Pei Jing's thin lips tightened upon hearing this, and it took him a long while to force out an "I'm sorry." The next morning, I found a bracelet by my pillow, a gold one. I was a bit dazed, almost thinking I was still dreaming. Pei Jing seemed to have genuinely changed. Was it because he saw me almost climbing into the prince's bed? That must have been quite a shock. Pei Jing truly meant it when he told me to wait a few days, arriving exactly on the 9th day with a box of broken silver to find me. This silver is just enough for you to buy your freedom. It's not convenient for me to approach the prince, and banknotes would be hard to explain. So I exchanged it for broken silver for you. I took the box. It was heavy and somewhat difficult for me to carry, but I still ran to the prince's courtyard as fast as I could. After being announced, I was called into the study. The prince was standing at his desk, writing something, and didn't look up when I entered, only asking me what the matter was. Only when I put down the box, knelt before the desk, and said I wished to redeem myself and leave the estate. Did the prince finally set down his brush and look up at me? If it's because of what happened that night, You needn't worry, I won't hold it against you. This servant isn't concerned about that night. I simply wish to regain my freedom at this time. Shouting about wanting freedom and refusing to be a servant was something of a new trend. Using this as my excuse, the prince found it difficult to say much in response. I didn't expect you to be influenced by those rumors outside. The prince said, slowly walking to the desk and personally helping me up. It's no surprise that concepts like freedom and democracy seem absurd and laughable to those in power, but I didn't expect the prince to be so unguarded about it, quite contrary to his usual lenient and generous attitude toward his subordinates. But lately, the prince's actions have repeatedly overturned my understanding of him. Perhaps I never truly knew him correctly to begin with, Lancio. I've actually always been quite fond of you. The prince's gaze and voice seemed deliberately drawn out, almost tangible, as he said enticingly, if you wish to shed your slave status, you could follow me, though I can't promise you the position of principal consort. A secondary consort is certainly within my power. Many maids have risen to become concubines, but few have reached the position of a prince's consort. The prince's promise was incredibly tempting. Almost like soaring to the heavens overnight, perhaps because I firmly believe there's no such thing as a free lunch. A strong sense of foreboding washed over me, and I instinctively refused. Your Highness's kindness is something this servant will never forget, but I still wish to regain my freedom and leave the estate. The prince narrowed his eyes and scrutinized me for a moment before finally speaking slowly. It's for Pei Jing. It wasn't a question, but a statement. I suddenly sensed a change in the prince's aura, which became overwhelmingly oppressive. I've always thought I treated all of you quite well. So why do you all want to run away? The prince's tone was gentle, yet it sent chills down my spine. Sure enough, he continued, you've harbored so many improper thoughts and deceived me time and again. Tell me, how should I punish you? Trembling, I was about to speak in my defense when a sharp pain shot through the back of my neck. Then, everything went black before my eyes, and I lost consciousness. Opening my eyes again, I found myself in a windowless room, alone. One side of the room had an opening connected to a passageway, lit by candlelight. I followed the passage outward and soon reached the end, which was blocked by a thick wall. I hadn't really expected to get out this way, but being alone in such an enclosed space, I instinctively wanted to look around, although I didn't find any way to escape. I realized the structure of this place felt familiar. After a moment of recollection, it dawned on me, this was unmistakably the secret chamber where I had encountered the injured Pei Jing during my night watch. This is the area behind the east wing of the prince's courtyard. However, the furnishings here are completely different from the last time I entered. Last time, it looked like a treasure vault, but now it is entirely arranged as a bedroom, with no natural light source. The stone walls appear somewhat eerie under the flickering candlelight. I sat idly by the bedside, unable to gauge the passage of time. Since I didn't know how long I had been unconscious, I couldn't even tell whether it was day or night, or perhaps already the next day, judging by the level of hunger in my stomach. It probably wasn't the next day yet, otherwise, I would be dizzy from starvation by now. Besides, it makes no sense for the prince to leave me here to starve. He must have his own reasons for keeping me confined, and he wouldn't let me die of hunger without cause. Sure enough, after what felt like an eternity, a sound came from the end of the secret passage. The entrance to the chamber was opening. Then came steady, rhythmic footsteps, and the prince appeared before me, holding a food box in his hand. At that moment, I had no desire to put on a pleasant face. I wanted to confront him loudly, but I held back, all for the sake of the food box. I forced a perfunctory bow and got straight to the point. Even if your highness truly doesn't wish to let this servant go, you shouldn't keep me locked up here. How can I serve you if I'm confined like this? How could that be? Our Lancio is capable of so much, but we'll save it for the critical moment. The prince ignored my sarcastic remarks, smiling as he set down the food box. Have something to eat. Don't starve yourself. The prince has always been fond of smiling, often beaming at everyone in the mansion, like the other sisters in my quarters. I once found his smile as refreshing as a spring breeze. Yet now, whenever I see him smile, I feel a chill that sends shivers down my spine, and what sends an even deeper chill through me now are his words, save it for the critical moment. What is brought out at the critical moment is always something that can turn the situation around. What great use could I, an unknown little maid in the prince's mansion, possibly have, to be kept for a critical moment to reverse the situation? The only connection I can think of to a critical situation is Pei Jing. Is the prince planning to use me to threaten Pei Jing? What will he ask Pei Jing to do? I have no information at all, so thinking about it is pointless. Pei Jing has been visiting me very frequently these past few days, and he just gave me the silver to buy my freedom. Given how sharp he is, he must have noticed my disappearance by now. Then he will surely suspect the prince first. The direction is not wrong. Pei Jing has a great chance of rescuing me. I just hope it happens before the critical moment. Thinking of Pei Jing, my chaotic thoughts finally settled down a bit. The door of the secret room opened and closed again, leaving me alone once more with the boundless eerie silence. I resigned myself to opening the food box and eating. The meal in the box was clearly prepared according to the prince's standards. And when I took the first bite of the tender, flavorful pork ribs, I nearly burst into tears. God knows how long it's been since I've had such a good meal. Ever since I time traveled, I've been forced to eat diet food every day. There's nothing to pass the time in the secret chamber. 3 meals a day are delivered on time, and even the chamber pot is cleaned daily. But I never get to see anyone. They always come to clean while I'm asleep. To the point where I once suspected the prince himself was doing it personally. However, that thought was too shocking, and I quickly suppressed it before the image could fully form in my mind. I roughly kept track of the days by counting my 3 meals a day, feeling that if this continued, I would surely develop mental issues. The prince hadn't come to see me again. I don't know why he isn't worried that at a critical moment, he can only rely on a madman. Around the 4th or 5th day, just after dinner had been delivered, the door of the secret room made noise again. My heart stirred, sensing something, and I immediately stood up and walked toward the passage, seeing the person I had been longing for day and night. One of them. Lately, it seems I've been thinking of the prince quite often. Pei Jing, clad in a dark, form-fitting night suit, had eyes that lit up the moment he saw me. He strode over immediately and pulled me into his embrace. I wrapped my arms around Pei Jing, holding him even tighter than he held me. "You've finally come," I said. I hadn't really felt that wronged before, but as soon as those words left my mouth, my voice trembled involuntarily, my nose tingled with emotion, and the next moment, large teardrops began to fall. This embrace felt like it lasted a long time, yet also seemed to pass in an instant. Pei Jing was the first to let go. "There's not much time. Come with me first, and we'll talk outside." Pei Jing draped a black cloak over me and led me out of the east wing. Strangely, there was no one in the prince's courtyard at that moment. We circled around the back of the east wing and entered a narrow path I had never seen before, surrounded by vast bamboo groves. I couldn't tell which part of the prince's estate we were in. By the time we stopped, we were already in a small alley outside the estate walls. Clearly, this path was known to very few within the estate. The prince didn't seem to have guarded against Pei Jing using it, likely related to the night Pei Jing was injured in the secret chamber. Pei Jing led me through a series of twists and turns in the narrow alleyways until we finally reached the main road. I could feel Pei Jing's grip on my hand finally loosen a bit, and only then did I realize that our intertwined palms were soaked with sweat. Yet it didn't feel unpleasant. Instead, I only wanted to hold on tighter, and for a little longer. "I'll take you to the estate in the western suburbs first. I'll leave you some silver. Try not to wander too far. I'll come find you," Pei Jing said as he removed his slightly conspicuous black outer robe and helped me take off my cloak, making us look once again like an ordinary young couple. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but at that moment, I didn't know how to begin. I simply let Pei Jing lead me quietly, savoring this last moment of calm before the storm. Pei Jing's residence was larger than I had imagined. Though its location was somewhat remote and not easy to find, I never thought I'd have the chance to enjoy a suburban villa all to myself. "Will you be in danger?" Before Pei Jing left, after much hesitation, I only asked this one question. "There might be a little, but I'll do my best to keep myself safe." "All right, I'll wait for you." Watching Pei Jing leave, I felt a bit of regret. I should have asked if he had retrieved that box of broken silver. If I had known I couldn't redeem my indenture, I should have just let Pei Jing take me away. Trading a box of broken silver for 4 or 5 days of princely standard meals minus the emotional distress compensation, just doesn't seem worth it no matter how you look at it. Fortunately, Pei Jing's wealth seems more substantial than I imagined. Although this residence appears uninhabited, it's clearly well maintained, clean and tidy. Without even a single weed in the courtyard, Pei Jing had placed several pots of golden-edged orchids in the room he prepared for me, quite elegant and well-tended, though I wasn't sure if they would bloom. This was the third time I had changed residences this month, and this time felt much freer than before, but I only dared to move around a very small area near the estate. Even when going to the nearby market to buy daily necessities, I would slightly disguise myself. That night, even the birds outside the window were scarce, yet for some reason I couldn't sleep. The moon outside was veiled by clouds, hazy and unclear, and I felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Early the next morning, I went to the nearby market entrance, where indeed twice as many people as usual had gathered, heatedly discussing something. My premonition grew stronger, and I squeezed into the crowd. Just then, I heard a middle-aged man in the center say, "If you don't believe it, go to the prince's mansion now. There are officials conducting a raid." Catching the key information, my heart pounded wildly. I grabbed an elderly woman nearby and asked, "Which prince's mansion? What happened?" Hearing my question, the woman grew excited. "Prince Zhuang's mansion. I heard that yesterday Prince Zhuang tried to start a rebellion. It was suppressed by the authorities, and now the entire Prince Zhuang's mansion is being raided." I have no time to marvel at how remarkably fast news spreads among the masses. The arrival of this day had long been anticipated, yet my anxious heart remains unsettled. The prince indeed harbored rebellious intentions, and from the outcome, it appears he has failed. This is undoubtedly good news for me, but if the matter has been settled, why is there still no word from Pei Jing? Whether it's rebellion or suppression, no matter how simply it's summarized afterward, those involved face extreme danger. Moreover, Pei Jing is connected to both sides, putting him in an awkward and perilous position. I prayed that it was just because the cleanup wasn't thorough and Pei Jing was busy, but I couldn't help thinking the worst. The image of Pei Jing covered in blood uncontrollably flashed through my mind, and my heart sank. Yet, I couldn't go anywhere now. I couldn't find Pei Jing. Let alone help. Anything I did would only cause more trouble, so I had to return to the house in despair and wait for him. It wasn't until near dusk that Pei Jing finally appeared. Half of the scene in my mind was confirmed. Pei Jing was clearly injured, though not to the extent of being drenched in blood and half dead. My breath caught in my chest, neither rising nor falling. I felt I should sigh in relief for surviving the ordeal. Yet Pei Jing's obviously hindered movements made my chest tighten with unease. I hurried to the door to support him, pulling him into the room to check his wounds. At first, Pei Jing insisted it was just a minor injury that had already been treated, but I persisted relentlessly. Only then did he reluctantly remove his outer robe. In sight was the bloodstain spreading on his white undergarment, right over his chest. My vision was blurred by tears, making the not-so-large bloodstain spread even more. Yet the owner of the wound was more anxious than I was. He flusteredly wiped my tears. "Don't cry, please don't cry, I'm fine. It's just a minor injury that wasn't handled properly. It's nothing serious." I wanted to hug him but was afraid of touching his wound. Pei Jing, however, hugged me first. "I'm sorry for making you worry." I shook my head in his embrace, my voice muffled. "As long as you came back safe, that's all that matters." I helped Pei Jing redress his wound and made him some light food. As the moon rose above the treetops, we lay on the same bed for the first time. Pei Jing's clothes were neatly arranged, and his posture as he half leaned against the bed was impeccably proper. Apart from the hand clasped with mine, he maintained a certain distance from me at all times. His restrained demeanor couldn't help but remind me of the first time we strolled the streets together during the Lantern Festival. Though my mood had relaxed considerably since then, Pei Jing finally told me everything that had happened. This was likely the most he had spoken since I had known him. "You made it sound so promising, claiming the plan was foolproof, yet in the end, it was so perilous that you ended up with such a fatal injury. How could this be considered a fatal injury? If it were truly fatal, how could I have come to see you so early?" But that was a vital area, a fraction of an inch off, and I dared not imagine the outcome, nor could I bring myself to say it aloud. There was a minor mishap, which led to a slight change in the plan, Peijing said with an awkward expression, pausing briefly before continuing. Fortunately, we made it through safely. There won't be such dangerous moments again in the future. Speaking of which, with the prince's mansion being raided, where will you serve next, if you remain a guard, even if you change locations? It doesn't seem much safer than the prince's mansion. The emperor said I was a hero in this round of events and granted me the position of second-rank commander. I'll be going on patrols from now on. Peijing chuckled lightly, looking at me. The emperor also said he could grant me an additional favor. What did you ask for? My eyes lit up. In my view, this kind of wish-granting favor was simply perfect. Gold, silver, jewels, and vast fertile lands could be mixed and matched as one pleased. However, it's not wise to be too greedy about such matters, lest it arouses the master's disgust and suspicion. Fortunately, Peijing seems to be a man who knows his limits, yet what Peijing asked for was completely different from what I had imagined. I requested the emperor's permission for marriage, and the imperial decree will arrive soon. Peijing and I locked eyes, and for a moment, countless thoughts raced through my mind. In the end, all I managed to say was, "Why didn't you ask for gold, silver, or estates? You've wasted such a good opportunity." Peijing caught the implication that I would have willingly married him anyway and pulled me into his embrace. But an imperial decree is different after all. I knew this difference meant little to him. A promising second-rank military officer with a bright future. But for me, it was a world of difference. Peijing had sought this imperial decree entirely for my sake. Perhaps unwilling to let the perfect atmosphere go to waste, I gazed at Peijing bathed in moonlight and thought that in this world, only gold and handsome men were not to be missed. So I leaned in and kissed his lips. This kiss began with my gentle touch and was then deepened incessantly by Peijing. The soft moonlight filtered through the window cracks, casting a romantic glow within the bed curtains. The end, the second story. The emperor brought back a beauty from the battlefield and insisted on marrying her. Furious, I overturned the table in protest. "You don't love me, and you won't let me find a substitute that's not playing by the rules. Is this really about playing by the rules?" He married my great-grandmother. Inside the Taihe Hall, the emperor and I were arguing fiercely. She's only a few years older than me, so why are we not a good match? She's kind-hearted, gentle, and dignified, with so many good qualities. I've made up my mind I want to spend the rest of my life with her. Only a few years older. I put my hands on my hips and glanced in surprise behind the emperor. That beauty was as delicate as a willow swaying in the wind, with tassels dangling by her ears, phoenix eyes paired with rosy lips and a delicate nose, thick and curled lashes, and skin so fair it dazzled under the light. Her face adorned with a light layer of makeup. Old bastard. She looks like a venomous snake no matter how you look at her. Xiao Shunzi glanced back and forth between me and her and declared, "Don't worry, Your Highness, she must be a stand-in found by the emperor. Look, she looks so much like you, as if carved from the same mold." Nonsense, that's my great-grandmother. I waved my long sleeve dismissively. Send the person back to where they came from. You've been at the border for half a year. Remember to submit a 10,000-word inspection report in 3 days. You heartless, cold woman. The emperor was so angry he trembled. He didn't even want the beauty anymore and dragged his injured leg away. Once the emperor left, the beauty dropped all pretense, lazily reclining on my chaise lounge with a bewitching posture, like a 1,000-year-old fox spirit. "Darling, is this the little mortal emperor you've been keeping? He's quite handsome. But a bit foolish, isn't he? Great-grandma, what are you doing here?" Although I call her great-grandma, her appearance is so youthful, resembling a girl of 17 or 18, that even calling her sister would feel like aging her. Little Piao, like a snake, wriggled her slender waist and slithered over, pressing her cheek against mine. "Good grandson, I told you not to call me great-grandma. Call me little Piao. I just missed you and came to see you." I coldly pushed her away. "Stop, no one visits the temple without a reason. Just say it, I'm here to kill someone. If a woman from Wushan develops mortal desires, the man must die. We practice the path of heartlessness, and I heard you've fallen in love. I came to see who this dog of a man is. Wushan has no such ridiculous rule. Just established it." Under my utterly speechless gaze, little Piao pulled out 3 pieces of cloth. To be precise, 3 bellybands, one embroidered with peonies, one with lotuses, and one with lilies, each carrying a faint scent that belonged to me. It made my old face flush red. Where did these come from? Little Piao listed them off one by one, under the pillow of the Mad Regent, inside the wheelchair of the gentle Chief Minister. And another piece is under the War God's armor. I heard he wears it every day. Oh, and I heard there's one with the enemy monarch too. I'll go fetch it in a couple of days. Goodness. The clan said you were suffering here, but I never expected you to be eating so well. I pretended to take a sip of tea. I suppose they must have stolen it. The Wushan clan are human too. They feel pain when injured, die when beheaded, experience all human emotions, and share in life's joys and sorrows. However, they are all women, with lifespans reaching 1,000 years, and their youthful appearances never fade. The little Piaro before my eyes is someone who has lived for several centuries. She persistently pressed me to reveal who made me develop mortal desires. I stubbornly refused to admit it. Finally, she slammed her hand on the table. I refused to believe it. I must get the whole story. No, I must kill a man. Tell me who your true love is. At night, Xiao Piao urgently dragged me out to have fun. Our first stop was the liveliest tea house in the imperial city. When Empress Shenyuan arrived with her entourage, the scene was absolutely spectacular. The princess's undergarments were draped over the regent's shoulder, his robe was piled by the table, and while it was freezing cold outside, things were heating up inside the room. This familiar plot made my old face blush again. I tugged Xiao Piao and walked out. This story isn't suitable for children. Let's change to another one. Don't. This is the most popular storybook in the whole capital. Xiao Piao leaned against me. My dear, the story the storyteller is telling is actually yours. It's been written into a book and will be passed down through the ages. I glanced sideways with my phoenix eyes. The princess on high. Why is the Mad Regent acting this way and that? Ban it. It must be banned for me. I turned to Xiaoshunzi and ordered. It's simply unbearable to look at. It's an insult to decency. How outrageous. Jar. I searched high and low, miserable and forlorn, until I finally found a seemingly proper tea house where a storyteller was narrating Journey to the West. I settled down with relief, booked a private room, and ordered Xiao Shunzi to bring me the recent memorials for approval. There was no other way. With the emperor on patrol at the border for so long, I had to shoulder the responsibility. I hadn't expected the storyteller to suddenly change the tale. By the time I came to my senses, Xiao Piao was looking at me strangely, still holding the very book the teacher was talking about in her hand, the dashing warrior and the charming princess *. On the way back, Xiao Piao's laughter echoed from one end of the street to the other. I tried to snatch the book from her hand, but she dodged me slyly, cleared her throat, and began to read aloud. A small boat, 2 people together, on a windless night, yet the water ripples with the boat's sway, wave after wave after wave. My ears burned with embarrassment as I snatched the book away, glanced at it, and quickly tucked it into my robe. Xiao Piao crawled over and hooked an arm around my shoulder. The book says the next day, the god of war carried you off the boat, and you were limping as you walked. Sweetie, who's more impressive, the god of war or the regent? I stayed silent. Xiao Piao started acting crazy, but I ignored her. Xiao Shunzi came to report that the emperor had broken his leg during mounted archery practice and asked me to hurry back to check on him. What? My dear little puppy got hurt. Xiao Piao pushed me aside and rushed into the palace in a frantic hurry. As she reached the Taihe Hall, she collided head-on with someone. She was about to curse, but upon seeing who it was, she swallowed her words and froze. Chief Grand Secretary, Zhao Jun, seated in a wheelchair, bowed to me with clasped hands. Your Highness, the princess, the imperial physicians have already been here. His Majesty is unharmed, but as the saying goes, 100 days to mend broken bones. His Majesty needs to rest well and must avoid strenuous activity. Xiao Piao nudged me with her shoulder when she heard the intense movement. Wow, you didn't even spare the little puppy. Zhao Jun remained silent, just bowing his head. Darling, I think he looks so wronged. No. I am not wronged. Your Highness, the princess, is deeply concerned for the nation and its people, protecting her younger brother. I trust in your Highness's character, but it is late at night, so I shall take my leave. As soon as Zhao Jun left, Xiao Piao chirped like a chicken. Which book is the story about him? Show me. Show me. The moment I arrived, the emperor began to wail, crying out in pain. The emperor had one leg bandaged in white cloth, propped up at length. When he saw me, he haughtily turned his head away. What are you doing here? I don't want to see you. I picked up the medicine bowl from the palace maid's hands and handed it to him. Drink the medicine. I won't drink. 5. I want to marry a wife. 4. I don't write reflections. 1. Gurgle. The emperor swiftly picked up the medicine bowl, tilted his head back, and drank it all in one gulp. Only afterward did he realize how unbearably bitter it was. He pounded his chest, wanting to vomit but unable to. You are devoid of humanity, unreasonable, you extract confessions by torture, and you bully the weak with your strength. He choked through tears and sniffles, pointing at me and accusing, and you didn't even count to 3. I leisurely sat down nearby, sipping my hot tea with delight. There are many noble ladies in the imperial city, plenty with excellent character and appearance. If you wish to marry, I can arrange a match for you in due time. I won't. He glanced at me, then shifted his broken leg as he scooted toward Xiao Piao. If I marry, I'll marry Xiao Piao. I like her, and I won't marry anyone else. Upon hearing this, Xiao Piao awkwardly pulled out a handkerchief to wipe non-existent tears from her face. Your Majesty, oh my, I never imagined your feelings ran so deep. You leave this humble girl, oh my, how could I ever repay you? I have a headache. This won't do. Pick another one. I won't change it. If I can't marry her, I'll grow old alone. I'll regret it for life. I'll make you worry to death. I'll make you furious. Xiao Piao covered her chest, putting on an act. Your Majesty, only when the mountains crumble and heaven and earth merge, would I dare part from you. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Do you want to be the 86th? 87. Little Piao corrected me. The record is outstanding. What's this about 86 or 87? It's all a mess, the emperor said, not understanding. If I can't marry little Piao, then I'll marry you. After all, that empress's palace attire was originally, I'm your sister, it's not even your own child. I was so furious I almost threw a cup at her. Little Piao suddenly turned into a drama queen, waving her handkerchief and putting on a show. What kind of royal secret is this? What should I do? What should I do? I don't want to die. Please don't kill me. Xiao Piao and I had just left the emperor's presence when we happened to run into Zhao Jun, who was hurrying back. He wasn't in his wheelchair, and his steps were unsteady. As he drew closer, I noticed he had coughed up blood. His face was deathly pale, and without a word, he suddenly collapsed into my arms. I took him to the nearest empty hall and summoned a court physician to examine him. How did you end up in such a state within the palace? Someone attempted an assassination. The late emperor was killed by an assassin, which led to a several-fold increase in palace security. The emperor broke his leg falling from a horse in the morning, and the chief minister was poisoned in an assassination attempt in the evening. Just thinking about it sends chills down one's spine. The assailant has been caught. Don't worry. A pair of large hands suddenly covered mine. Qianqian, I subtly withdrew my hand and returned a smile. Please speak, Lord Chief Counselor. His eyes held a trace of sorrow, but soon a smile emerged. The peach blossoms that year bloomed more abundantly than this year, their fragrance filling the air. In the blink of an eye, several years have passed. You've grown up, brighter and more cheerful than before. It's truly wonderful. Zhao Jun and I had a past, but we parted long ago. He was too gentle, even in those moments, always asking if it was all right. I broke up with him in a fit of anger, but he refused to acknowledge the breakup. A court physician entered to deliver medicine, and he cleared his throat. These assassins have tattoos on their bodies. If I'm not mistaken, they are elite guards from the Great Yu Palace. I saw them coming out of your chamber and stealing this. A handkerchief wrapped a few hairpins and 2 silk scarves, all items I use regularly. I just don't know what they intend to do. It's possible they've disguised themselves and kidnapped you to threaten our dynasty. After I finished the medicine, the imperial physician left. He changed his tone, his gaze drifting over me, his slender fingers lifting the hem of his robe. That year, the peach blossoms fell like rain, and you said you wanted to experience sitting in a wheelchair, so it turns out you've been wreaking havoc all over the young emperor's court. Xiao Piao was sharing the bed with me when she turned over, revealing a book beneath her. Quick as lightning, I snatched it away. Peach Blossom Depths. The Untold Stories of the Princess and the Prime Minister. I just picked this up outside the city. Xiao Piao Piao suddenly leaned in. Darling, how's the wheelchair experience? Go to sleep. You. I rolled my eyes at her, but then she actually sat up and pulled out those few belly-bands again, looking troubled. 4 people. Which one should I kill? I jolted upright. The Wushan tribe really has that rule. Nonsense. You can have a man by your side, but you cannot have a man in your heart. I didn't grow up in Wushan since childhood. You can't use the rules there to bind me. You weren't there when I suffered hardships, and now that I'm enjoying a good life, you come to take me back. I won't agree to it. Xiao Piao Piao clicked her tongue a few times. Suffered hardships? What hardships did you suffer? What difficulties did you face? She shifted her hips back, revealing a pile of books beneath her, and lightly tapped her finger at the former emperor's birthday banquet. You and the regent were doing this and that in the hall. Did he force you? Couldn't you push him away? Not exactly. Her fingers moved to another book. On the mid-autumn night, the boat drifted, and the next day, the god of war carried you off the boat. You were weak and powerless. Did he drug you? Leaving you with no way to cry for help, he seduced me. The Peach Blossom Grove, the gentle Prime Minister's wheelchair. He started it. As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly felt a chill behind me. I quickly turned around and saw the emperor standing behind a pillar, looking at me with reddened eyes like an abandoned puppy. Sister, didn't you say you were just friends with them? Sweetie, your little puppy seems like he's about to cry. The emperor is furious, the kind that can't be soothed. He ran off dragging one leg, limping yet moving incredibly fast. Just as I was about to chase after him, little Shunzi suddenly came and said that the regent had barged into Zhao Jun's hall, and the two of them were arguing. That scene looked like it was about to turn deadly. The regent has been a true madman since childhood, after his entire family was slaughtered. He endured humiliation for decades, eliminating every last one of his enemies. On the day he sought revenge with his sword, even the emperor's decree couldn't restrain him. I rushed over in a panic, only to hear Fu Hanqing's chilling tone. Prime Minister, don't forget your status. You are an outsider. What would it look like for you to live in the palace? Could it be that, in order to care for Her Majesty, you've even castrated yourself and given up on having descendants? Is Qianqian a name you're allowed to use? Fine, then I'll personally castrate you myself and put an end to this devotion of yours. Don't worry, my blade is swift. After I entered, I heard the Prime Minister's gentle voice. Stop scolding me. If you scold me, I won't take my medicine, and the princess will worry and have to coax me into drinking it. I stopped at the doorway. Fu Hanqing stood with his back to me, holding a sword, clearly furious, noticing my arrival. The man stiffened for a moment before turning around and bowing to me properly. I waved my hand and sat down with Xiao Shunzi's support. What is the reason for such a loud argument in the palace? Zhao Jun coughed a few times, sighed softly after calming down, and said, the regent believes I shouldn't stay in the palace and wants to throw me out. I told him it was the princess's wish, but he refused to believe me and insisted that I move out. I am well aware that it is inappropriate for an outsider to stay in the palace, but he was severely poisoned. The imperial physician said he needed complete rest, and leaving the palace would inevitably cause jostling, so I let him stay. I am the only princess in the palace, and my reputation was already poor to begin with, so I couldn't care less about what others say. I glanced at Fu Hanqing. Weren't you inspecting the southern regions? Why are you back? 3 years ago. The floods in Jiangnan persisted, and Fu Hanqing volunteered to manage the water control. After the floods subsided, he never returned. Fu Hanqing's gaze fell on my face, the candlelight flickering. There is someone in the imperial city I cannot let go of, so I returned. Fu Hanqing expressed opposition to Zhao Jun residing in the palace. I have a plan. Why not let me also move into the palace until the chief minister recovers? This way, outsiders will have nothing to say. For public opinion is to be feared, and the princess's reputation is of utmost importance. I expressed disagreement. Who would have thought Fu Hanqing fainted on the spot, and with a loud thud, he even crashed onto the low table, startling the imperial physicians into a frantic, all-night rush. In the end, it was diagnosed that he had been poisoned by a potent toxin during his hurried journey and needed complete rest to recover. Well, everyone might as well stay put. Your men may be tall, well-built, with 8-pack abs, but alas, their constitutions are truly delicate, Xiao Piao pondered. It seems they're all easy to kill. I was too tired to speak, but Xiao Piao insisted on pulling me to tell her a story. When I refused, she casually picked up the book The Princess on High. Why is the mad regent acting like this and that, and read it with great interest. The book says the regent fell in love with the princess at first sight. Upon hearing she was to be married off for political alliance, his madness was unleashed. On the night of the emperor's birthday, he broke into the princess's chamber and did this and that to her. I closed my eyes and turned over. Fake, actually. The princess was drugged with an aphrodisiac by Empress Xian Yuan. The regent realized it was a trap but still chose to help the princess relieve it. So when the empress barged in with her people, the two were caught in a passionate embrace. I went back to sleep. So fake, it's laughable. Then what is real? Fu Hansheng grew up in hardship and isolation, raised among wolves. He held no affection for anyone. Upon entering the court, he slaughtered all his enemies, only to eventually discover that the annihilation of the Fu family was actually ordered by the late emperor. On the late emperor's birthday, he arranged for assassins. At that time, he held immense power, unmatched by anyone, and boldly pointed a sword directly at the emperor's chest. So the emperor was actually killed by Fu Hansheng. No, I stepped in front of my father to shield him. Fu Hansheng forced me to step aside, but I refused, staring at him intently. It wasn't that I was particularly devoted to the late emperor. In truth, the Xian Yuan family was powerful at the time. The crown prince was cruel and sharp-tongued toward me and my younger brother, while I could live carefree once married. My brother still relied on the late emperor's protection. Did he sheath his sword then? He did. He truly barged into the bedchamber on the third day. After bathing for a long time without any palace maid attending to me, I turned around and called out, only to see him handing me a silk handkerchief, his gaze unflinching. No one actually barged in that day, and I didn't call for anyone either. Mainly because he's incredibly handsome. The way he restrains himself and then lets loose is truly captivating. Besides, with his immense power, it wouldn't be a bad idea to seek his protection. He slipped into the bath, entangled from dusk until the first light of dawn. However, the emperor was later assassinated, with the primary suspect being the neighboring kingdom of Dayue, which is why our dynasty and Dayue have always been at odds, with constant friction along the border. Thanks to the commotion caused by Fu Hansheng and Zhao Jun, I slept very deeply, not waking until the sun was high in the sky the next day. Upon opening my eyes, I saw the emperor looking furious. You say they're just ordinary friends, yet you've invited them into the palace and even—
Besides, General Xie had said that if he were lost, we would all be finished. When it was time to sleep, I wanted to sleep in the middle, but Xie Yu vetoed it with one vote. Because Wan Yinlu was cunning and we were afraid he might escape, he had to sleep in the middle. I thought it made sense. So we both slept on either side, holding on to Wan Yinlu's arms. At first, our relationship was just this simple and unadorned. Later, we argued because his second aunt was caught cheating. Xie Yu, protective of his second uncle, held a sword to the other man's neck. I saw how pitiful the woman and the other man looked as they cried, and my sense of justice surged. She just made a mistake that any woman in the world could make. What right do you have to punish her? The one who isn't loved is the real third party. After saying that, both I and the candid Hawthorne were kicked into the river. From then on, I no longer liked Xie Yu. Wan Yinlu was raised in the palace, so I often went to play with him. Later, when the 9 clans were executed, the Empress Dowager hanged herself, and my younger brother and I relied on each other for survival. When the marriage arrangement was decreed, Xie Yu came to me and asked if I wanted to leave. He said he would take me to a place with no one else, and he would take care of me. I touched my bottom, refusing with reddened eyes. Isn't it perfect to bestow me in marriage to Wan Yinlu? We've already slept together anyway, old acquaintances. That day, Xie Yu was so angry his face turned green. Swearing he would never speak to me again, he requested to be stationed in the north to guard the border, and every year reports of victories came in. His achievements were outstanding, and his status rose again and again, but he never came back, so much so that he kidnapped his own relative, and when I saw him, it felt like a lifetime had passed. He got into the carriage. Murong Qian, I'll give you one chance. Choose me, quickly. It had been a long time since we last met. His muscles had grown even more robust. and there were a few more scars on his chest, adding a touch of mysterious allure. He sat down, reached for my leg underwater, and pulled me closer. How have you been all these years? The petals floating on the water were scattered by the ripples. I pinched his firm arm. With you guarding the northern frontier, no one dares to rebel against the emperor now. In the 2 years since he ascended the throne, he has matured a great deal. He measured seriously. You've grown a lot too. I lifted my foot and pressed it against his shoulder. He reached out, held it, and placed a kiss upon it. Qianqian, this time I'm back. And I won't be leaving again. I was sleeping deeply when I was suddenly awakened by Xiao Shunzi. Your Highness, the chief minister and the regent are arguing again. I'm too sleepy to even lift my eyelids. How much noise can 2 poisoned people make to disturb my peace? But Miss Piapiao said she wants to kill them. I jolted upright from my sleep as if startled from the brink of death. Last night, the emperor's younger brother suddenly went mad. And little Piapiao was summoned to dine with him, originally intended to provoke me. But how could he outsmart a 300-year-old fox? Little Piapiao managed to extract quite a bit of information from him, and this morning she went to the side hall with a knife in hand. Fu Hanxing and Zhao Junjing sat on the floor, trying to prevent anyone from climbing onto my bed, but unexpectedly, little Piapiao kicked the door open, ready to kill. When I arrived, several people were arguing. And all the palace attendants had been dismissed. Miss Piapiao asked the noble guests who had seduced the princess and won her heart, and each claimed it was themselves. Hearing the news, the king of Dayue also came over to join the excitement. When I went there, 3 men were recounting the past years to little Piapiao. You finally came. Little Piapiao saw the savior. This sword can only draw blood once. Grandma truly didn't expect you to play it so wild. Quick, tell me. Who do you love the most? In an instant, a dozen pairs of eyes were fixed on me. I wiped away non-existent tears. Each and every one of you is my subject. Please don't say such things anymore. It breaks my heart. The princess only loves me. In the sudden silence, everyone looked over in surprise to see Chief Minister Zhao Jun covering his chest with a handkerchief, coughing a few times. Miss Piapiao, if you want to kill me. Don't trouble the others. Did I allow you to speak? Fu Han's hen kicked his wheelchair. How dare you covet my woman, Zhao Jun? It seems you've grown tired of living. He pointed over. You, tell me, who does your master like the most? The pointed at Xiao Shunzi immediately stood at attention. My lord, of course it's you. Fu Hanxing heard the satisfactory reply and was about to say something to Xiao Piapiao when, unexpectedly, Wang Yanlu suddenly laughed. Fu Hanxing, you've been madly obsessed your whole life, striking fear into everyone who speaks of you, yet in the end, you're just deceiving yourself like this. He flicked open his folding fan and gently waved it. Qianqian and I grew up together in the palace since childhood, innocent and close. Back then, you were still struggling to survive somewhere unknown. At the age of 10, we promised each other to support one another for life, to be each other's one and only in this world. I couldn't be bothered to refute him, after all. He and I had long since parted ways. It was just that he dumped me. Xiao Piapiao nudged me with her elbow. This doesn't seem like a lie. Let's just kill him. No. I took a deep breath and pointed at the emperor who had just entered the door. That one is the person I love the most. The emperor slumped against the wall, struggling to breathe. Sister, this isn't a dream, is it? I patted him on the shoulder. Little brother, you've grown up. It's time to take on responsibilities. A pig slaughter-like roar echoed through the palace. I returned to the hall and was about to rest for a while when someone suddenly wrapped their arms around my waist. I caught a familiar scent and reached back to feel. You wasn't wearing a shirt. You're so bold, I couldn't resist giving it a few squeezes. Are you poisoned, for real or not? Really, I don't know when little Piapiao will take me back. If I die so young, I'd be so frustrated. Xiaoyu stared at me for a long time before suddenly laughing. Fine then, I've had enough fun anyway. Dying is actually a lot like sleeping, just longer and more comfortable, with no one to bother you. What a mess. My gaze fell on the pile of books behind him, and I was shocked. You've been reading these all morning. No wonder he didn't join the excitement at Taihe Hall. He was here reading banned books. Xiao Piapiao was placed upside down, so the title wasn't visible. Xiaoyu looked at me in surprise and reached for the book. I overslept. Is this not allowed to be read? I breathed a sigh of relief and kissed him on the cheek. The dry wood and fierce fire didn't ignite. Xiao Piapiao said the emperor had fainted from excessive blood loss. I didn't mean to, I was just teasing him. Who knew he'd bump into my sword and fall right in? By the time we fished him out, he was almost dead. The Hall of Supreme Harmony was filled with the sound of weeping. Xiao Piao Piao looked at me apologetically. That little puppy is like a fool. He was running, but as soon as I said I would kill the one you love, he threw himself forward. Luckily, I withdrew my sword quickly, but this sword is a lethal weapon of the Witch Mountain clan. The best outcome could only be this. The emperor lay on the dragon bed, his face as pale as paper. I remembered when I was a child, I was also on the verge of death like this. My mother saved me. In a dilapidated temple, she asked if I wanted to be her daughter. My mother was kind and sincere, and while she was alive, she never let me suffer any grievances. I was indeed drugged by Empress Shenyuan and caught red-handed by her. Since the man involved was Wanyan Lu, I was accused of treason. It was my mother who knelt on 99 steps to beg for my life. After her death, I have the responsibility to care for her only child. Is there any way to save him, unless someone from Witch Mountain is willing to sacrifice their life for him? Mount Wu is very far away. We traveled by water, climbed cliffs, crossed deserts, and finally reached the depths of the forest, where it is spring all year round, with beautiful mountains and clear waters. The water of Mount Wu is very refreshing to drink. Wanyan Lu refused to return to Dayue. Qianqian, I did it. I have ascended to the throne of Dayue, and no official dares to overstep. My harem has remained empty, waiting only for one person to return. That incident happened so suddenly. I was knocked unconscious by my mother's clan and taken away. It wasn't that I left without saying goodbye. I did think about sending you a letter. The young man had changed a lot. But his eyes were still as captivating, and his words were sincere. I smiled at him. You've had a tough journey. Congratulations. Truly. Come away with me. If you don't want to be trapped in the deep palace, I'll roam the world with you, and we can be a pair. You really are a persistent ghost. Fu Hansheng sneered. I received all the letters you wrote, and I tore every one of them up. So what, if it were me? Even if the sky had fallen back then, I would have taken her with me. After the incident, you just walked away. Do you even know? Perhaps thinking of something, he fell silent and just looked at me quietly. Having been stationed in the southern border for many years, Fu Hansheng never returned. In his heart, I am the daughter of his enemy, and between us lies the weight of over 100 lives. He tried to take my hand. The court is in turmoil. You have no backing, struggling to make a living with your young brother. It's been hard on you. It's my fault. If only I had known earlier. I shrugged, pretending to be at ease. It's fine. I was already planning to marry the chief minister anyway. The throne is within easy reach. Such is life in the royal family. You don't get to choose whether to fight or not. If you don't fight, you'll only meet death. Zhao Jun was born with a leg disability. As the only son of his family, he is both virtuous and talented, with immense influence, the best support my sister and I could have. I originally intended to bear him a son, then send him to the afterlife with a cup of wine, and take over his power for my young child. But after trying to seduce him a few times, I found that not only was he noble and upright, but he had no interest in matters between men and women. His mother also treated me well, and before her death, she cried, saying she felt sorry for me and worried that marrying Zhao Jun would wrong me, so I couldn't bring myself to do it. Later, I realized that I didn't need to marry to pave a way for the emperor. Whatever the other princes could do, I could do as well. The Shen Yuan family fell from power, the crown prince was deposed, the emperor was assassinated, and the imperial court was in turmoil. With my younger brother in tow, having nothing to lose, I fought my way out from among dozens of princes. To this day, I am still grateful for the fearless courage I had back then. The Wushan tribe is far removed from the secular world, with almost no one living there. The tribe's people would drink the water to sustain their lives and then return to the human world to live. After offering myself as a sacrifice to the emperor, my body no longer allows me to leave Witch Mountain for long periods. I must drink its water daily just to survive. Xiao Piao Piao patted my shoulder sympathetically. Don't worry, great-grandma will sleep with extra men on your behalf. Sticking to just one would get boring. I asked her if the Witch Mountain clan changed its rules because of my mother. That old hag. I held her in my arms. Throughout my life, I fought for power and profit, my hands stained with blood. The world has long cursed me. Court officials held many grievances against me, and scholars exhausted their ink, portraying me as a demoness who brought calamity to the nation and its people. After staying in Witch Mountain for a few days, I unexpectedly felt extraordinarily at ease. Xie Yu, however, adapted quickly. Holding me in his arms, he lay back on the mountaintop with a blade of grass in his mouth. Who says this life is bitter? This life is absolutely wonderful. I just didn't expect that a few men suddenly came from outside the mountains. The tribespeople who came to drink water laughed at me. swaying their hips. Chanshan, little sister, those men said they're here for you. They said they've all lined up by age. You really have some skills. I heard the man beside me curse. Fuck. The end.